Okay, we're applauding.
This is something I really haven't shared with too many people, actually, until this past weekend when it went out, and I'll get to the bottom of that in a few minutes, but I remember when I was a junior in college, I had to take statistics. Gosh, did I hate that class. I couldn't wait till the period was over and that class was done with. However, there was one part of that, one section that dealt with decision tree analysis. I found it fascinating, although I didn't totally comprehend the whole probabilities and everything else went along with it. However, I did grasp the concept, and it's played a pivotal role in so many things throughout my life. And little did I know, and I wish a lot of people had realized this when they put this article out there over the weekend about, is college worth it? In my particular case, it is worth it because of the fact that, seriously, that decision tree analysis class perhaps saved my life. And I'll tell you why. Over the weekend, I finally revealed that I had only shared this with close families and friends, is I was diagnosed with a brain tumor about 14 years ago. It was benign, and so I was quite lucky. And what happened is I was having hearing problems, degradation of the hearing in my left ear, and I was getting sharp, piercing pains in my head from time to time. It lasted a nanosecond, but they were there every maybe an hour, and then became every few minutes or whatever. So it became increasingly disturbing. So I went and saw an ENT, and the ENT put me through some battery of tests, and one of them was an audiologist. The audiologist came back with the results, and I was pretty much deaf in this ear, and the tonal patterns were indicative of something going on with regard to a tumor. So he said, I want to send you for a scan. So I went to Northside, had the scan done, and came back to him, and he said, he called me, I should say, and he said, sure enough, it's what I thought you have. It's an acoustic neuroma. And I had done my research on it. Acoustic neuroma is a brain tumor that encapsulates the cranial auditory canal of your ear, and it just circles it. And if you don't take care of it, it grows, and eventually you could become incapacitated, and all kinds of things happen. So with that, I said, what do I do? He said, what I'm going to recommend is you go see a neurosurgeon. There's someone that, a referral partner. So I said, okay. So he said, I want you to stop by the office and take your scans and bring them over to the neurosurgeon. So I did that. And it was about 2 weeks later, I went in there to the neurosurgeon with my wife, and I went in, walked in, and the place was decorated like the Taj Mahal. I thought I was at the, I'm trying to think of the fishing place up off of 75 there, but they had every fishing gear paraphernalia and photos of all these giant fishes and everything else. The place was really decked out. This guy was really into fishing. And then over to the right of it, they actually had a rehab facility, and it was quite large. It was probably 1,000 square feet or something like that off to the side. So we walked in there to the neurosurgeon, and he asked me, what are you in here for? I said to him, what do you mean, what am I in here for? He said I didn't have time or something to check out the scan or whatever. He was kind of nonchalant about the whole thing. And I said, well, you probably realize I have an acoustic neuroma. Oh, he said, and these are the words out of his mouth, that sucks, pardon my French. And I said, what? I couldn't believe my wife looked at me. What? Did he just say what I thought he said? And I just discounted it, and I said, it's just another bump on the road to life. I said, well, what do I do? He said, well, I want to schedule you for brain surgery a week from now. So I said, with that, I said, I really want to wait a while, okay? It's not really that bad per se. And I had done a lot of research on it, and I looked at the outcomes because of my decision tree analysis background from that stat course. The first thing was if you have surgery, it's quite invasive, so you have risk of the possibility of death on the operating table. It's about 4%, I think, probability. Then you have the probability of getting septic for any type of surgery. The other one is if they do the surgery, you probably experience, for 1 year period of time, facial paralysis, drooping ear, and all kinds of things. Generally it goes away, but not in all cases. The other alternative is just to wait and see what happens. And the fifth was to have a thing called gamma knife. So I looked at all of these with regard to the decision analysis, and there was no way I was going to have the operation because of the fact that the risk factors were so incredibly high. And so what I did is I elected to actually pursue the gamma knife alternative. So I searched around. I called my brother-in-law at the time, a late brother-in-law now, unfortunately. He was vice president of Boston Medical Center. I said, can you find someone in the neuro department at BU Medical that might have a friend that they know, or colleague, past colleague down here in Atlanta, that might specialize in neurosurgery or a gamma knife? So he was able to find someone that on his staff that had gone to University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, and he referred me to a Dr. Michael Goodman here in Atlanta. He was at Piedmont. So I went in there, and he asked about what was going on in that, and he said, he took a look at the scan, and he said that right now you're in a position where you can wait a little bit because of the fact that it doesn't appear to be growing that rapidly. However, eventually you'll have to have something done because it will totally overwhelm you. So I said, let's wait. So I waited about 6 to 9 months. The pain got progressively worse. I said, it's time, we need to do something. So with that, he said, well, we're going to schedule you for a gamma knife. And if you know what a gamma knife is, basically it's a large nuclear medicine where they shoot you with protons and gamma, it's actually gamma rays. And so I said, okay, we'll do it, because I looked again the probability assessments with regard to this. And so it was a Friday, I'll never forget. I had had my head measured by a nuclear physicist about a week before that, so they know exactly what they were doing. So my son drove me, I think it was 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30, to get down to Piedmont, wheeled me in, and I was sedated, but I was still conscious. So they put me in. Next thing you know, they took and put a halo, and they actually drill holes, 4 holes in your head, and they affix a halo so that you can't move. And they sit you in a chair, it looks like an electric chair in a lot of respects. They'll sit you there, and so like, I think it was about 2 hours, just sat there, and they asked me if I was okay, but they were beaming me, beam me up, Scotty, but they were beaming me, believe me. And so I got out of there and went to recovery and came out around 1 o'clock. My son picked me up and I went home. I was sick as a dog all weekend. And then what happened is I went back to work on Monday. I never let on that I had anything wrong with me. I never told anyone at work because I was deathly afraid that someone was going to find out that I had a brain tumor, and I just had an operation that's $45,000, and that I was someone that had either cognitive or other disabilities that they would have to pay for. So I kept it all hush-hush, and I did that for years. I go to meetings, and I have to sit, and I still have to do this because I'm totally deaf in my left ear. I'll have to sit to the with everyone to my right. If you notice, that's why I picked that position. And so I've been doing that. And then if people talk to me, I have to turn my head so that I can hear them through this ear. I read lips pretty well, but I'm not that constant. So what happened, and the reason I'm going public with this now, is I have been a volunteer with the Southeast Brain Tumor Foundation for the last 3 or 4 years. Go to their annual race event down at Atlantic Station. And so they asked me if I'd volunteer my story. So I said, I really didn't want to do it in some respects, but then I did because of the fact that it might help save someone else's life, because of the fact that a lot of people just rush into the neurosurgery that's quite invasive again, and with all the potential horrific outcomes, without really thinking things through. And in this particular case, the Southeastern Brain Tumor Foundation had posted an article the other day about Matthew Stafford. If anyone knows who he is, his wife, he quarterbacked for the Detroit Lions. His wife has what I have, okay? And she was totally devastated. I saw some of her posts, it's like the world is ending. I mean, I'm 13, 14 years out, and I'm still, you know, doing quite reasonably well. I can go out and run and do all kinds of things. So I try to connect with her, but nothing happened. But this impacts a lot of people on a day-to-day basis. And the other thing is, I never wanted to reveal because of the fact that I think it becomes a crutch for people, or people put themselves out there with hopes that it's going to attract people that will feel sorry, and next thing you know, from a business perspective, that they'll garner a lot of wealth accordingly. I know this one person, person had prostate surgery and capitalized on it. You know, that's pretty common among men in this day and age with prostate. So the thing is, it's I didn't want any type of sympathy. I didn't want any type of that. So I kept it quiet until someone asked me if I wouldn't mind doing it and sharing that. But the lesson is that, you know, you do learn a lot in universities. You do can apply some of the things that might save your life, such as decision tree analysis. Everyone that is diagnosed with something by a physician should get a second opinion without question, because of the fact that you never know what the motive is of one particular physician versus another. So it's best to have at least 2, if not 3 opinions, and then weigh your outcomes with regard to that. And then you can live with certain disabilities and that. I hate being deaf, but I'm still here. I'm still able to go out and run 7.5 miles approximately 3 or 4 times a week when I want to. It's still physically active. It's still in the game, but it's taught me a lot about life, and there's more to it than making a ton of money. If I stayed in the industry I was in, the stress would have exacerbated this thing. It's still, my brain tumor is still here. It's just smaller than it was, and it could, you know, erupt like Mount Vesuvius at any time. You never know. But every day is a gift, and you just keep moving forward with regard to that. And just life, as you said, Eric. I mean, it is what it is, and you just you're here for a reason. I think the reason is to share the story tonight, but more importantly, over the last 9.5 years, it's been to help others, because they have a sense of how difficult it can be for people and the challenges that they have to overcome. Thank you.
All right. Essence appreciations for Jeff.
A good storyteller, passionate about what you do, very succinct in your message.
Well, thank you.
Could you repeat, if you can remember, everything she said?
Yeah, a very good storyteller.
Look at her while you're saying that.
Very succinct, and you're really passionate about your message. Thank you. Yes.
A passionate teacher.
Well, thank you.
Repeat that.
Passionate teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
Strength in communication and strength in your life decisions and in helping other people.
Right, thank you.
Could you repeat that?
Strength in storytelling, strength in conviction, passion, and strength in helping others.
You're good. Remember, I couldn't remember all that. That's one of the things we just try to keep it
Well,
succinct.
see, I still have some of my, I didn't lose all my cognitive ability when they zapped me.
Yeah, well.
Although I do glow in the dark, so if you watch me,
Well, your right ear is obviously more.
my right
more
ear is
fine.
good, but
Yes,
my
you
left,
can hear.
I'm totally deaf.
Yeah, so I'll just give you a really
But
short one.
if if I sleep on my right, I don't hear a thing. That's one of the good things, okay?
Hold on, I want to
We're
give
not
you one.
done yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll just give you a very simple one. Inspiring and illuminating.
Inspiring and illuminating.
Yes. All right, we're going to applaud. Stay up there. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.